friends, welcome back to the Homestead. It is Becky here. I'm super excited you're in my garden with me today. I'm excited I'm in my garden today. This is the first day of 2021 garden season that I get to plant things in the ground. I am going to be planting my onion sets that I started. I started these January 10th. I am going to be planting some pea seedlings that I started. These I just started 2 weeks ago. And I am also going to be direct seeding a few things. I have some radishes, some spinach, and some peas that I'm going to direct seed. Along with my onion sets that I started, this is another tray that I started, I am going to be planting some onion sets that I bought from Dixondale Farm. These were recommended by that 1870s Homestead. I have two varieties here. They're both storage onions. And the reason I wanted to buy these along with planting the onions that I started from seed was this is my first year starting onions from seed, and I want to ensure that I get somewhat of a harvest. So just with that little bit of gardener hesitation with trusting my own abilities, I wanted to go ahead and purchase some starts from a reliable source. I live in Zone 8B. I live just north of Portland, Oregon, about 10 minutes in Washington State, and my last frost date is March 30th. Today is February 20th, which is 6 weeks from my last frost date, which is when I'm supposed to be getting these onions in the ground. Last year, my onions only got the size of about a tennis ball. Oh my gosh, no, I wish. They got about the size of a ping pong ball. They were super tiny. They tasted really, really good, but they were a pain to peel because it took like 8 of them to get the size of one regular onion that you would buy in the grocery store. So let's hope that this year is a better year. I am going to plan on feeding these onions way more than I did last year. Onions are heavy feeders, and so that is one of my goals this year, is to make sure they get enough food to grow big. Last year I planted onion sets, not onion starts, so they looked like little miniature onions that I bought at the store, and I have a feeling that's one of the reasons why they didn't do as well. Just from doing a little bit of research, onion sets don't tend to get as big as the starts do. This is the bed that I plan to plant a bunch of my onions in. I probably will need more than just one bed with the amount of onions I have. And what I did in the fall was I went and I took all the leaves from my neighbor's trees and my trees, and I put about a 4-inch layer of leaves on here as a way to protect this soil through the winter. But because I live in the Pacific Northwest, slugs are my nemesis. Those are the #1 pest that I have to deal with. And slugs love mulch. They breed in mulch. And so I've got to get all this mulch up. I'm going to compost this. I'm not going to waste this carbon material. But I can't have mulch around my plants because the slugs, they live in it and then they come out and they eat my plants and then they go back into the mulch. I learned that the hard way last year. So I'm going to get all this leaves up and I'm going to probably put it on other beds for now. And then at some point I'll throw it in the compost bin and it will become soil in the future. The only fertilizer I have right now is this, and I was just reading the back and it says to put 2.5 cups per one, wait, what did it say? It says 3 to 6 pounds per 100 square feet, and this is a 5-pound box. My bed is a 4-foot by 16-foot bed, which means there's 64 square feet in there. So I am gonna put, I don't know, maybe a quarter-ish of this box, and then I'm going to mix it into the top few inches of the soil to prep this bed. Now I just did the math. I'm going to do a square-foot gardening method to plant these onions. So that means I can do 9 onions per square foot, and 64 times 9 is 500 and something onions, which seems like a lot of onions. We go through a lot of onions. I don't know if I have that many in my seedlings, but I'm pretty excited about the prospect of growing a year's worth of onions. I'm just going to eyeball this. I'm just going to sprinkle a good amount and then mix it in. have this wheelbarrow full of horse manure that's been composting for about a year now. We're lucky enough to have a family friend who has a horse in town. They live about 10 minutes from us, and they're only on, I think, an acre and a half. So they have to dispose of their manure every few weeks, and they are gracious enough to drop it off at my house. So I have a pile back behind my shop back there where they drop it off. And so I'm just going to do a thin layer of this pretty well composted horse manure. There's a lot of worms in this. It's pretty awesome. So my bed is all ready to be planted. I am going to do the square foot gardening method on this bed for these onions, and I went ahead and made myself a little grid. I've seen online, which I'll link it below, some really nice square foot grids, plastic things with a tool, and all the holes are already punched in. I just haven't bought one of those, so I just went inside and made myself a 1 foot square and put 9 holes in it. So I went ahead and I did rake this to smooth it, but I am going to go through with my hand and kind of smooth as I go. I'm going to take my square and kind of push it down a little bit so that I can see where the indent is. And then I just take a stick that I found on the ground, and I'll just mark it. Now I can see my holes. And I'm just going to take my onion, put it in. It is starting to rain a little bit. We do live in the Pacific Northwest where we get a lot of rain. We did just have a big snowstorm for us. We got about 8 inches of snow, which is a lot for around here. Last weekend, it was really fun. I started cooking on our wood stove. If you want to see some of those videos, I'll link them above. We just got the wood stove going a few weeks ago, and I just started cooking on it, and it's been super, super fun kind of diving into that. I got the red wing planted along this row, and then this second row is copra. And I am getting prepared to plant the onions that I started. So I would be lying if I told you I wasn't nervous about this. I didn't water these this morning, or actually for the last couple days, because I wanted the cell to be a little bit dry so that I could kind of break this apart a little easier. So there's one. This is the ruby ring. So these ones I'm going to plant next to the copra along this row here. I planted 2 red onions. I planted ruby ring, which did really well, and then I planted Brunswick. The Brunswick were seeded in here and in here. Only Brunswick seed that sprouted. So I don't know if it was bad seed or what, but I will not be trying Brunswick onions again. The ruby ring did really well. I got all the ruby ring planted along here, which almost made it to the end, and now I'm starting on Patterson. I'm going to go ahead and plant these peas. It's starting to get a little bit dark out here, and then I'm going to plant them along the edge of this bed here. I've got these T-posts here, and not tonight, but probably sometime this week, I will string something up for these peas to climb on. Did the same thing with these. I didn't water them for the last couple days so that hopefully that they would be able to break apart pretty easily and not do too much damage to the roots. So it seems like they're a lot easier to manage when they're shorter. So next time I do this, if I don't just direct seed my plants, I'm going to plant them when they're only about half this tall. Something like this seems to be a better height. I got one little row of peas planted. I don't know if I'm gonna do that method again where I start the peas inside, because I broke, I don't know, 10 plants trying to transplant them. And so it might be better just to direct seed. And yes, I know my chickens shouldn't be out in the garden. Got my leeks planted, and I was thinking when I was in the shower today that I could plant some radishes between my onions. I don't know if this is a crazy idea. I'm sure you guys will let me know. But radishes only take like 24 days to mature, and these onions aren't going to be ready until mid-July. And so I was figuring that I could plant these in between to maximize my space, and they shouldn't crowd out the onions at all, because these will be ready before the onions get to any real size. So let me know if this is completely crazy, but I'm going to go ahead and just plant a few in between. I planted these 4 inches apart, all my onions. So there's a funny story last year. I planted what I thought was a whole bag of salad mix, spring mix, but I didn't realize that I actually planted an entire package of radishes. So I fermented them, I pickled them, and I still have a bunch of them in the refrigerator. I haven't been very diligent about eating them, so it probably is a little bit silly that I'm planting these radishes, but the cool thing about radishes is they are such a fast, from seed to germination, from seed to harvest, that they, you get really excited about them. I've got this corner over here that I didn't have any onions to plant, so I'm gonna go ahead and plant my Dollar Tree spinach. This is giant noble spinach. It says to plant 2 inches apart, so I'm gonna go ahead and get a couple rows of spinach here. I went ahead and planted another row of peas right along these seedlings that I planted last night. I was worried that they weren't gonna do well over the night. I don't know why, but they did well. No slugs got them, so I'm excited about that. I am gonna use the same trellis for these peas as these peas, but I'm gonna go ahead and get them covered up now. I just cleared this bed and the one right next to it. Along the outer edge, I am gonna go ahead and plant some Alaska shelling peas. These are a quick to maturity pea. I'm gonna do 2 rows on each side, and then sometime next week I will put some T-posts and I will trellis this. But I have a couple weeks until they germinate and get big enough where I have to do that. My goal today is just to get seeds. My goal today is just to get seeds in the ground. So I did get 2 rows of peas along this edge of this raised bed and along this edge of that raised bed. Over here in my garlic bed, I planted this whole bed with soft neck, hard neck, and some elephant garlic back in October or November. I can't remember exactly when, but I had nothing planted right here, and so I went ahead and planted some spinach there just to maximize the space and not waste it. Well friends, gardening season 2021 has officially begun. I know I started seeds about a month ago, but now that I was able to get my hands dirty out here, planting some starts, planting some seeds in the ground, my heart is filled. I am so grateful that this season has begun. I cannot wait to see what it produces. If you guys want to see what comes out of this garden and what the other things I'm going to be planting are, and what does really well, what doesn't do well, what I do when it comes out to preserve it, to cook with it, all the recipes, go ahead and subscribe, and I can't wait to see you guys next time. Have a great day. Have a great day, guys. Bye.